Right, make sure you've got all of your ingredients pre-weighed for this one. The recipe is based on percentages, so you'll need to set your scales to kilos and grams. This is a 2 kilo 50-50 mix of pork belly and pork shoulder that's been well trimmed and minced on a small diameter mincing plate. It's been passed through the mincer twice. Now make sure the mince is really well chilled before starting this stage. I'll leave all of the percentages for this recipe in the video description. Next up, we're going to add our leek. Now this is 250 grams and it's been thoroughly washed and then blitzed in a food processor. I prefer to break this down like this so that the flavour is released from the leeks and easily transfers to the sausage mix. That being said, it's important not to make a puree. We want to keep some texture in there as well. Now I'm adding the seasoning, and this is 30 grams of coarse sea salt, 5 grams of fennel seeds and 5 grams of white peppercorns, and that's just been blitzed in a spice grinder. This is 200 grams of dried breadcrumbs that have been blitzed quickly in a food processor and then soaked in 400 grams of cold water. I let these sit in the fridge for 30 minutes. Now you could use a rusk that's been specifically processed for sausage making, but I have breadcrumbs easily to hand. Now these are key to achieving the texture of a British banger and do a great job of hanging on to fat and moisture in the sausage. Right, time to get our hands involved, and that does mean they're going to get a little bit cold. Dive straight in and mix all of the ingredients together thoroughly. The key here is to work this mixture hard by squeezing it tightly through our hands until it's not only mixed well, but it's also developed a sticky texture. A quick note on the percentages. Working in percentages will really help you convert this recipe for smaller or larger batches of meat, and it really helps you dial in the recipe, making tweaks in the future really easy. Now, to be honest, the water quantity isn't an exact science. The amount of water absorption will vary between different breads or indeed rusk, and that may mean that you need to add a little bit more water. But that judgment is going to come with a little bit more experience. And to begin, you can use the visual reference point of my mix here to know if you've added enough water. Now this mixing stage will take a good 5 to 10 minutes, and when you get to this point you can take a small piece of the mixture and cook it off to check the seasoning. Now if you make any adjustments, make sure you weigh the ingredients correctly and adjust the percentages in your recipe. A word of caution about the salt. If the mix tastes just a touch too salty, then it should be on point after the sausages have rested for 24 hours. In my experience, it takes some time for the salt to balance out through that mix. Once you're happy with the mix, you can cover it and refrigerate it for an hour. Now I like to press cling film down firmly onto the top of the meat and push out any air. That will create a good seal. This will help stop the mix turning a greyish colour. Take the time now to have a good clean up and prepare for the piping stage. Right, now it's time to stuff the sausages. Oh, and if you're thinking about buying a sausage machine and aren't sure what to look for, then check out the video that I'll link to in the description. I've put together some helpful pointers on what to look out for. The meat needs to be packed into the chamber tightly, so as you load the meat in, pack it down at the same time. This should avoid excess air piping into the sausages. Once the chamber is full, close up the machine and wind down the piston disc onto the mix. Now these natural sausage casings are stored in salt. I've soaked them in room temperature water for about 20 minutes, refreshing the water and rinsing the cases every 5 minutes. Now you need to try and find an end. Once you've found the end, pop 2 fingers inside and dip the end in and out of the water, filling the casing with some of that water. This will help lubricate the inside, flush out any extra salt and untangle the casing as you slide it onto the nozzle. Slide the casing onto the nozzle. The water you've just flushed through will help with this. If it's a little difficult and getting stuck, then you probably haven't soaked your casings for long enough. Just pop them back in the water and give them another 5 or 10 minutes. Once you've slid on the entire length, leave the end hanging over by 2 or 3 centimeters. Now don't tie a knot in it, as this will cause any air to get trapped in your sausage. Slowly does it. As you turn the handle, the excess air will blow out the end. As the mix comes through, it will automatically catch the end of the casing. You'll need to feed or hold back the casing depending on how much filling is being piped in. You want a nice plump sausage, but not one that's bursting out at the seams. This will come with practice and as you gain a bit of experience. Then it's just a matter of keeping going until either the nozzle is empty or you've used all of the mix up in the chamber, whichever comes first. Refill with any mix you've got left or reload the nozzle and then just repeat. Right, now it's time to link these together. Now you could just twist them individually, or you twist one way and then the next sausage the other way, but linking in pairs is pretty easy. Find the centre of the long sausage and press together and twist at that point. Keep the twisted part hooked over your index finger and lay the two tails over your hand. Decide how long you want the sausages. I generally go the depth of my hand, and while holding the tails together, pinch them, squashing the casings together. Then twist the two sausages to create a seal. Grab either one of the tails and pass it through the hole in the middle of the two sausages to stop it coming undone. That's it, the first two bangers done. Now it's just a matter of repeating. Right, measure out the next two sausages, pinch the casings together, give those two a twist round, grab one of the tails, does not matter which one, and just pull that through the hole in the centre of the next two sausages that you've just made. Right, one more time and I think you'll have the idea. Measure out the two bangers, pinch the casings together, give those a twist round and then grab either one of the tails, pull it through the centre hole, and there's your next two bangers. Now I've got to the end and I can see I've got enough in one tail to make a nice sized sausage, but in the other I've got a little bit too much, so I'll just squeeze out the excess and then I'll tie the two ends together, and that completes the chain. Grab the whole chain, pop them into a container, cover them and leave them in the fridge for 24 hours. The next day you can cut them into individual bangers. Now these keep for several days in the fridge, but making a big batch of these is perfect because they freeze really well. I'll get a couple cooked off in the oven and I'll tell you what I think. Okay, let's give these pork and leek bangers a whirl. Now after the 24-hour rest period, that seasoning is absolutely bang on. Before, when I cooked off the test piece, the salt level is just a little bit high, but it just takes that short rest overnight in the fridge for everything to balance out well. And remember, the recipe is in percentages, so that will make it really easy for you to tweak if you need to. The leek works perfectly with the pork, which is why this is one of the great British bangers. And then at the end, you just get this hint of white pepper come through. Again, not too much, not too little. I think that's just about on point too. And as always, if you give these a go, then please do tag me on Instagram or keep me up to date with anything else that you're doing. And all that leaves for me to say is a huge thank you for watching. Take care. I'll see you again very soon. Stay tuned.